Welcome everybody to today's District Plan Review Committee meeting. Please note that this meeting will be followed by an additional council meeting immediately after this to consider recommendations from this meeting. The emergency procedures are on the wall. I think everybody in the room is fairly familiar with them. If not, please take the lead of our staff. Opening formalities up on the screen. Mea karaki a tātou. Tēnei o te haukai nei o taku tapawai. Ko te haukai nuku, ko te haukai rangi. Ko te haukai a tau tūpuna a tāne nui a rangi. Ka pikiti ai ki ngā rangi tūhaha, ki te tiho o mā nono. Ka rokohino atu rā ko I o mātua korianaki. Ka tikinga mai nā ki kiti o te wānanga. Ko te kiti tuauri, ko te kiti tuatia, ko te kiti aranui. Ka tiritiri a, ka popo a, ka putu mai e ho, ko te I rā tangata, ki te whaio, ki te ao marama, tihei, mauri ora. Apologies, we have received apologies from Mayor Barry, Councillor Mitchell and Mr Tioni. Is there any other apologies or early departures? Noting Councillor Edwards is also joining us on Zoom. So I'd like to move the motion that the apology received from Mayor Barry, Councillor Mitchell and Mr Tioni be accepted and leave of absence granted, seconded by Councillor Briggs. Any debate? No, I put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. All opposed? Declare that carried. Moving into public comment. Speakers, thank you for joining us today. Just a reminder, you have 3 minutes to speak, and we have 4 speaking today. Councillor Duffy and Councillor Nash from Greater Wellington Regional Council are speaking on the only item 5, Sustainable Growth Strategy. You've got 6 minutes between you, and if you leave some time, we can ask some questions as well. Thank you.
Kia ora, thank you, Chair. Kia ora, councillors. We wish to speak to the Sustainable Growth Strategy and to request that there's an addition made to the natural environment sort of chapters, whatever they're called, to pursue a vision of predator-free Hutt Valley and also to support Greater Wellington with its proposed endangered wildlife sanctuary in the Wainuiomata water collection area called Puketaha, which Thomas will speak a bit more about in a second. So you'll be aware of my background in predator-free type community groups. It's amazing the effort that is going on the ground in Lower Hutt, and it's partly because we have such a wonderful natural environment to protect and that residents enjoy mucking in to care for, enjoy recreating in, and enjoy the bird life and wildlife. And there are groups in every suburb. There's big and small, amazing effort. On the wings of the city, there's the effort of the Remataka Conservation Trust in the Wainuiomata Rongorongo area to reintroduce kiwi 20 years ago, and they're currently replacing all their traps for their second life. You know, it's an ongoing, very well-sustained, well-supported project. We have lots of work up in Belmont Regional Park and the Western Hills there. We have Stokes Valley, the Reserve there group. There's amazing effort across the city. So I feel like this 30-year strategy is a good chance to recognise that effort, the natural beauty and taonga of Te Awa Kairangi, and also to reflect on national level. We have a predator-free 2050 strategy, so there is a government and national sort of thrust here. And when we look at Wellington and we see the amazing success of predator-free Wellington, eradicating rats, possums and stoats from the Miramar Peninsula and now moving through the CBD. Capital Kiwi, introducing kiwi into the wild for the first time in over 100 years. We had the pleasure of welcoming some of those new manu at Waifetu Marae recently. When we see the Zealandia and the sense of identity and enjoyment that comes out of having that centrepiece in Wellington City, and the flow-on effect, the kaka eating people's apples and making ringtone noises in their gardens, and et cetera, and we're on the edges of that out here, and it won't be long, according to the experts, that some of the kiwi from Makara, they already made their way through Churton Park and heading towards Johnsonville, and soon they'll be popping out in Horokiwi and the Korokoro stream, and the ones in Wainuiomata are being heard in Upper Hutt. So we are in the middle there, and there's an opportunity, I think, over the next 30 years to develop a progressive vision as to how we can move towards supporting the wildlife. A centrepiece to that project would be the specific proposal for a fenced sanctuary in Wainuiomata Water Collection Area. So I'll pass over to Thomas to speak more about that.
Thanks, Quentin. Kia ora, everyone. Nice to be here. So the the headwaters of the Wainuiomata River, as you probably know, they are cloaked in old growth forest, so first growth forest, never been logged. And it's one of the most pristine areas of lowland podocarp forest in the lower North Island, possibly the most. And very importantly, it has mature fruiting rimu trees, which support threatened species such as kakapo, which are obviously on the brink of extinction. And there needs to be a plan in New Zealand for the ongoing survival and hopefully flourishing of this species. And the headwaters of the Wainuiomata River, this water collection area that we have, if it were to be fenced with a predator exclusion fence, then it could become a place where kakapo could thrive. It's twice the size of Kapiti Island, and it would be by far the largest mainland fenced sanctuary in New Zealand. It would also be much easier to access for the Department of Conservation than other places where kakapo live at the moment. And so that's to talk about its value for kakapo, but I mean, there are other species that it would support, like hihi and kokako and kiwi, obviously, and many others. So not to mention plants, such as the amazing parasitic plant, which was just found in the wild, growing in this area recently. So yeah, we hope as Greater Wellington that working with Hutt City, with mana whenua, who have been very involved in the development of the proposal so far, working with the Department of Conservation and with community, that this is a project that will be able to move forward. It will need substantial capital funding, so that needs to be worked out. But I think it could be one of a series of very large fenced sanctuaries in New Zealand that, as a network, could support the future of many of our threatened species. So there is a proposal that I think might have been circulated with a letter. Sorry for the lateness of that letter, but it went from Darren this morning. But you can look at that at some point. It does have the latest version of the proposal, which was put together by Jim Lynch, who was the visionary founder of Zealandia. And so there's quite a bit of material to look at, and yeah, more work to go, but we think this could be a hugely supportive project for the country.
And so to finish, this is not a pitch for funding or anything. This is a 30-year strategy where we put in aspirational ideas and then find ways to work towards them. And so the two specific additions I suggest, one is around to support Greater Wellington and DOC with the next stages in the development of the Puketaha Sanctuary, and then something along the lines of collaborate towards a plan for a predator-free te awa kairangi, or something like that. So it's open-ended. What does that mean? There are different ways of doing that can be worked out, but that's the idea of a 30-year strategy. So, kia ora katoa.
Kia ora, thank you. I've got one quick question before we go to Councillor Briggs. This didn't come up in Greater Wellington Regional Council's submission that they made on the policy. They had two goes at it. Obviously, it was in your personal submission, in your personal capacity. Just wondering if you know why it wasn't brought up at that stage.
No. I guess officers prepare the submission based on the things that are on their radar at the time.
Slipped through our vice-like grip.
But I guess maybe it shows one of the added values of councillors in the local government system, perhaps.
No, mihi kia koroa, and also to everyone else that's behind the work that's happened as well. And so for the sanctuary, thinking of our 30-year strategy, is there a current timeline for that as well? Because I know that if we give any directions to our officers around our strategy and wanting to give some tangible kind of markers if possible, and also if there's any kind of other suggestions around not just the wording, but around the intent from any other partners as well, in the sanctuary project that people have kind of brought into and kind of what they're living by. I think having that continuity of statement is quite useful.
Yeah, There is no timeline, but what the next immediate step would be two steps, I guess, that could be done in parallel. One would be figuring out some kind of governance structure for a future entity that might, look to build and manage the sanctuary. That would involve mana whenua, local government, and central government. And the other bit would be the kind of technical engineering study of the fence route, and that some preliminary work has been done on that to establish that it is feasible, but much more needs to be done to get to a point where a resource consent could be sorted. Certainly, within a 30-year window, this could easily be up and running. And unlike Zealandia, because the forest is already well established, you would get the benefits immediately.
And so if we did have a statement in the strategy, an intention of working in collaborative partnership with mana whenua, Greater Wellington and the community to pursue a sanctuary in the Wainui headwaters for the benefit of the environment and for all, that would suffice for yourself, or is there any particular other points you'd want to see in that strategy that reinforce that commitment as well?
I think I might just add central government to the list of partners you mentioned.
Perfect, thank you both. Quinton?
So I think that my suggestion is two additions. So one is around the sanctuary specifically, which is very much a support role, because Greater Wellington Department of Conservation would be leading that and with mana whenua. And then, but complementing that is the effort for a predator-free Hutt Valley that is the optimising or maximising the halo effect of that sanctuary. Yeah. And so in Wellington, we've got Zealandia, but we've also got all that effort outside, which has been council and community and everyone for many years now. Thank
you. Noted. Thank you both.
So just on the sanctuary itself, are you saying that there isn't right now any ask for financial commitment, obviously, but there won't be in the future, or that will come at a later date? Right now, you're just wanting sort of an indication that we're keen to go on this journey with you.
There's no request for funding, and there's nothing to fund at the moment. And before we can move forward, really, there does need to be, this is a national level significance. And like I said, you'd really, the purpose of doing it would be really a network of large fence sanctuaries across New Zealand. And this would be the one for the Lower North Island. So it's really a national level conversation to get it. It won't move forward without national level support. So.
Kia ora, Councillor Shaw.
Here we go. Thanks for coming in today, and really interested in what you propose. And Councillor Briggs has actually taken away my question about asking for that detail around what we need to have in our 30-year strategy, and I think it's perfect. I just want to take the opportunity to thank you for the great work that you're doing out there. It wasn't that long ago I actually saw a very noisy kaka fly over Stokes Valley, and I didn't know what it was, but he was damn noisy. And it was only because I've been to Zealandia was I able to identify him, and it was quite interesting that community pages opened up with, what is that? And it was wonderful to see them out there, and look forward to Kiwi coming through from Wainuiomata up to our hills, Eastern Hills as well too. So not a question, but thanks.
Deputy Mayor Lewis.
Thank you, and I too thank you for coming in, keeping this project at the forefront and introducing it here again to the 30-year strategy. So my question on that strategy as well is the whaitua is mentioned a lot in the strategy, which is great. And on page, what am I, attachment 2, page 73 of our report, they're talking about the initiatives for enhancing the tributaries of Te Awa Kairangi. I'm more focused on your thinking on the wetlands, and especially to your thoughts on, we've got the harbour mouth and the entrance and things like that, to do a bigger wetland down there. And I know it was talked about on the whaitua as a way to protect coastal areas as well with climate change and sea level rise. Is there any thought for support from the Greater Wellington to keep going down that track?
Question.
I'd have to come back to you on that. I think in terms of, I mean, in theory, yes, I guess. Exactly what and how and where that works with the different responsibilities like flood protection and coastal adaptation, and there are overlaps of agencies in that area. Just in terms of the aspect of, it is one of the areas where the predator-free predator control assists, because to have healthy wetland and coastal restoring sort of areas, they're commonly used by feeding and ground nesting birds, and they're particularly at risk of predation from stoats and feral cats and whatnot. So it's not just about the forests. I mean, Puketaha would be a forest sanctuary, but there are these other ecosystems, particularly wetlands and coastal areas in Lower Hutt, that are equally as important and really benefit. And we'll probably hear from Frank soon about the work of Mero, which is protecting not just the forest there, but the coastline. So there's overlap, these are synergies. But I can look a little bit more into the specifics of...
that's a good question.
Are you suggesting we replace the Gear Island golf course with a giant wetland? Deputy Mayor, I'll look into it.
Kia ora, thank you. Cool, you've asked some really good questions there. We'll get officers to touch on them when they join us at the table. Any further questions? No, awesome. Kia ora, thank you so much for coming in. You're obviously more than welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. Cheers. I'd like to ask Emily Mossman, who's joining us via Zoom, who is also speaking to item number 5, the strategy. Emily, if you can hear us, could you please flick your camera on and unmute your microphone? Kia ora, you've got 3 minutes, and if you can leave some time for questions, that would be lovely. Thank you.
Kia ora, ko Emily tōku ingoa. I'm the coordinator of Pukeariki Predator Free, which is a group of volunteers focusing on the Korokoro catchment end of Belmont Regional Park, the area with the greatest amount of mature forest and regenerating forest after retirement of grazing. Since 2022, we've been trapping in the area. We've got 310 traps, 41 volunteers, with the support of Wellington Regional Council, who provided us with the infrastructure, with all the hardware. I like to think that our vision is to obviously rid ourselves of the pests in there, which is currently rats, stoats, weasels, and a large population of possums. And the vision being that we would like to see kiwi and kaka back in our area, which if you look around the area, as Councillor Duffy mentioned, we're surrounded by projects that are doing the same with a great amount of expertise and lots of philanthropy and funding. So we're by no means pioneers in this area. There's a lot of work being done, and we're joining those people and hoping to create a corridor for these birds to move in further north and to nest in our backyards. Why not? I think most ratepayers would agree that that would be a lovely thing to have. And certainly I'm jealous every time I hear about all of the birds and success that they're having on Miramar Peninsula. We'd love to have that in our backyards. So I'd like to think that 30 years is a long time, and Hutt City Council would have the benefit of drawing on the expertise of those around them, those that are professional and those like myself who are volunteers. I learnt from trapping in Remataka Conservation Trust. So there's a lot of aspirational projects out there and expertise to draw from. And like I said, we've got 41 volunteers, and that includes ages 12 up to retirees, very passionate people. We're also supporting a teenager class of predator control from around the region that are coming into Belmont Regional Park, and they are learning how to be predator controllers. So we like to think that we're helping train up future generations who will be your ratepayers in time to come, to be involved in this, so that there's generations to come that have the same skills. We're also supporting some teenagers that are doing their Duke of Edinburgh, so they're doing their service with us, and one of them's decided to stay on because he's enjoying himself so much. Yeah, so that's about all I have to say.
Good,
Does
thank you,
anyone
Emily.
have any
We've
questions?
just gone 3 minutes. Were there any questions, Councillor Briggs?
Thank you, Emily, first and foremost for your work that you do alongside many of us in our community for our environment and our people. My question is there anything specific that you're seeing that's lacking from the strategy as it is? I know we heard from Councillor Nash and Duffy before around having predator-free as being a focus over the next 30 years, as well as the sanctuary in Wainuiomata. Is there anything else additional to that that you think would actually help enhance the strategy and also recognise the work that's already happening and that needs to continue to happen on the ground as well?
I think even just by having it stated that it's a goal, that it will support all of our projects, just being able to quote the fact that that's a goal will help us with our grant funding and bring us together as a collective. It's quite easy to get lost in a particular patch of the forest and obsessing over law and stuff like that. And I think this would allow us to pull our heads up and talk to one another and make it a regional effort rather than localised projects.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Kia ora, any further questions? No, thank you so much for your work, Emily, you're doing in the community, and thank you for joining us today. Kia ora. Moving on to our last public speaker, Frank Vickers, who is also speaking on item number 5, the sustainable. Thanks, Frank. You know the drill.
Kia ora. This will only take a minute. I work for Meadow, Mainland Island Restoration Operation, a volunteer group that's been working for years in conjunction with Greater Wellington Regional Council to rid East Harbour Regional Park of pest species and also to undertake regenerative planting in the Parangarahu Lakes, the southern end of the park. So I'd like to take a moment here to commend Greater Wellington Regional Council for their foresight in their recent purchase of the Collins Valley Farm. It's going to be a huge asset to the Hutt and the whole region. I see both the goal of predator-free Te Awakairangi and the Puketaha Sanctuary as complementary to GW's ambitions. The more coordination that can be brought to bear, the greater the chances of success. I'd like to see my grandchildren's generation be able to hear Kiwi calling, both in Wainuiomata Valley and also the Collins Valley. Thank you.
Kia ora, thank you, Frank. Councillor Briggs.
Thank you, Frank. Same question that I've asked the other speakers as well. Was there anything additional that you see the strategy would be enhanced with? Looking at that 30-year vision, this adding on to your comments as well to make sure we capture it today with any direction we give to officers.
Actually, I think one thing that you could do would be quite an easy win would be to get some of these many disparate groups together. Sometimes we were talking at a recent Miro meeting saying we were going to start a WhatsApp group so that the trappers could skite about their kills, basically, but not in a gruesome way, just to encourage everyone else who's in the team who may not be getting many catches. And obviously that's a good thing, but you sometimes you think, well, maybe I'm not doing any good. So just to get these groups together, possibly even just on a formal basis, just so that they know that there are other people out there doing the same slog, would be great for morale.
Thanks, Frank, for your ongoing work. Appreciate it.
Kia ora, Frank. No further questions. Cheers. Thank you for joining us today. Cool. Moving on to item number 4, conflict of interest. Call on any members to declare any conflicts of interest. No. Lovely. Moving on to item number 5, which is the Sustainable Growth Strategy for adoption. This is on page 7 of our agenda. I'd like to ask Lucy, our Head of Urban Planning, to speak to the item. Kia ora, Lucy. Thank you.
Kia ora, councillors, Mr. Chair. With me is Kashmir Kaur, who's helped me on this strategy. We've already briefed you on what we heard from the various stakeholders we engaged with and the changes that we were proposing, so I will not speak to that further. I'm happy to just go straight to questions if that works for you.
Cool. Thank you. Did you want to address any of the questions that were raised? Cool. Kia ora.
So at the time that when we wrote the strategy, this council didn't have an adopted predator-free policy, so we were not at freedom to use that language in the document. We used language that expressed support for the regional council's activities. We know that we part fund some of their predator control activities, so that's what we spoke about in the document. Should we have direction from the committee or council to up that language and talk about predator-free by 2055, obviously we would happily include that in the document, but we felt as officers we couldn't do that preemptively without a decision. And with regards to the fence sanctuary, we'd not received information from our counterpart at the regional council at the time, so we didn't have any information really to go with and include in the document. But if there's a desire for that to be included, we're very happy to amend the document.
Kia ora, thank you. Were there any members that had questions, Councillor Briggs?
Thank you both for the work that you've done so far and for the work that's still ahead. I'm just wanting to check on about Emily's comments as well around having a goal in there that the community can see and work towards as well as supporting them with funding applications for resource, knowing that as a citywide goal as part of our development, that we're doing it in a sustainable way and that we're acknowledging the work that's occurring in the communities around predator free. So I think it's that twofold. At the high level, as Councillor Duffy and Councillor Nash put forward around having it as a high level strategy, but also how do we measure that, or how do we actually aspire to that and get our community supporting as well. And yeah, definitely want to note, obviously you didn't get the information prior from your counterparts, but it's very appreciative that members of the public, including other elected members, are coming forward now at this point. Like all strategies, you know, they update it over time, but the more we can capture in the first iteration, the better to kind of set that path to. So thanks for being willing to hear the information today.
Kia ora, Councillor Shaw.
Thanks for the report. I really like the way it's presented too as well, and there's a lot of really good stuff in there. I just want to pick up on one of the points that one of our speakers, Frank Vickers, raised earlier about the potential to bring individual groups together would form a really powerful ally or an ally group. And rather than working in isolation, it would be really good for us to have that written somewhere so that it happens a little bit further down the track on a regular basis as well too, because I'm pretty sure that all the groups would be able to leverage off each other and do so much more work, and it's all voluntary, as we know, so that can be considered as well.
Yes, and I have to say I would have to talk to our Parks and Reserves team and the owners of the biodiversity strategy, which is more the more direct relative document to all these initiatives rather than the urban growth strategy. But by all means, we're happy to include language that supports, if they have the ability to support local groups and put them in contact with each other. And I can check with Arthur.
Any more questions? Yep, John.
Thank you, Chair. So just to reiterate what Lucy just said, this was the spatial plan initially, so it's predominantly for housing and urban forms. So up to the discretion of the subcommittee, the biodiversity strategy is probably the best place for the valid comments that were raised by public speakers. So this is predominantly going to be used for our future housing and where we're building. So that just wanting to make that clarify, but up to the committee which direction you go.
Cool, kia ora. Cool, we'll slowly drift into comments. Deputy Mayor Lewis.
Thank you. And just following up too on the comments from the floor from Frank Vickers, I think personally that the Whaitua project working with Greater Wellington, they suggested that sort of thing as well to get into the community, bring them together. So I really think collaboration with GW into that other strategy would be the way to work it, and instead of just us picking up the tab for everything. Thank you. Great strategy too.
Kia ora, Councillor Briggs.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to acknowledge the public comment and the consultation that's gone into this document ahead of time, and taking on John's points as well. I think the biodiversity strategy that we've developed is a great lead, and it's always a challenge of government and governance of having so many strategies and them not talking to one another. And I think what's been raised today in public comment is that kind of grey area of the Venn diagram. And I think it's important that as we're developing our city for more housing and intentional housing, we're also paying respect and intention around the environment and how those things interfold. And so I think it's both with the request today, I'm supportive of us acknowledging predator-free as an aspiration for our city as part of this, but also around the sanctuary request. And I think both of them can carry over to an update of the biodiversity strategy as well. It's kind of, it's both rather than one or the other, or none for me. Yeah, so again, taking on board what's been said, I think it's a good way forward, and it's already in line with this council's direction as well for our city and for our natural environment as well. When it comes to growth, often we think around the economics of it and the housing element, but the natural environment is often forgotten and not held at the forefront. So I think having those aspirations and clear goals documented here as well just reinforces this council's position.
Kia ora, Councillor Morgan.
Kia ora, thank you. Yeah, thanks for the work. Thanks to the speakers. I totally agree that I think it should sit here as well as in the other, because when it's at the forefront, we keep it at the forefront, and I think it's really important. I think it also aligns with that well-being, social cohesion space for our people, but this is also for our place, and our animals and our land is all part of that. So that well-being. And I think by having them there, I think that makes this even stronger. So thank you for the great work that you've done. Appreciate it.
Kia ora. Anyone else wishing to speak? Oh, cool. I'll just speak briefly then. Yeah, I really support the strategy and the direction it's taking us. And while I do acknowledge it is about housing primarily, I have really appreciated how it has incorporated Te Taio and supporting a greener, healthier city as well. And I think the points raised in public comment, I think we could go a little bit further, especially in how we support biodiversity and predator control. I think we should add into the strategy something around the long-term aspiration to become predator-free, which does align with the regional and national goals that we have, to show that we are contributing to the wider vision and positioning ourselves to be part of this conversation in the future, noting that we don't have a predator-free policy at the moment. We've already got amazing community groups around our city doing some amazing work, so I don't think maybe bringing them together and coordinating their efforts probably sits within the strategy, but definitely something that I think we should take on board and do outside of the strategy. Yeah, and I think there is probably a chance as well to be clearer about the broader ecological restoration ambitions as well in that plan, which would be pulling on what's in the Indigenous biodiversity, just making sure that is reflected in there. But I'm not sort of proposing we delay the adoption today. I know we're up against the time with this one, so I think maybe if these minor adjustments could come to the mayors and chairs for final sign-off, then it could still go through the committee today, through full council following this meeting, and not be held up, as I think they really are minor wording changes. Noting that there are already great comments in the policy about working with regional council on pest control. I think just being a little bit firmer with the language would be very great. Any other person wishing to speak? Councillor Briggs.
So just the question, Chair, do you have some wording for the recommendations around those editorial changes, noting the direction that this committee is providing as well?
Yes, we've got one recommendation in front of us that we've got three in front of us. I just add a fourth recommendation. We'll just take a 3-minute break while we bring something up on the screen. Kia ora. Cool, we'll just bring those recommendations up on the screen. So we've just added a fourth recommendation that officers will take on board the minor adjustments around being predator-free and working with GWRC on Puki Taha and report to mayors and chairs for final sign-off. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Briggs. We've kind of already done comment, but is anyone wishing to speak to this, especially those that haven't spoken? No. Awesome. All those in favour, please say aye. All against? Declare that carried. Kia ora, thank you. Moving on to item number 6. This is on page 124 of the agenda, our District Plan Review Committee Forward Work Programme. Do any members have any questions? Great. I'd like to move that the committee receives and notes the Forward Work Programme for 2025 attached as Appendix 1 to the memorandum. Do I have a seconder? Deputy Mayor Lewis. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. All against? Declare that carried. Item number 7, questions. I've received no questions. So we'll move to item number 8, which is the closing formalities. If we could please bring these up on the screen. Mea karakia tātou. Unuhia, unuhia. Unuhia e te uru tapanui, kia wātia, kia mama, te nākau, te tinana, te wairua e te aratakatū. Koi rā I rongo, whakai hia aki ki runga, kia wātia, ai rā, kua wātia, hau pai mārie. Kia ora everyone, I declare the meeting closed.